The SAAB 95 NG was the last car that SAAB ever made, and it gets a bit of a bad rep amongst many people. At best it's said that it's just a Vauxhall, and at worst it's said that it actually is responsible for the demise of SAAB, or at least for not saving SAAB. But blaming this car for the death of SAAB, it's a bit like bringing a substitute on into a football match in the 89th minute when you're 3-0 down and then expecting him to save the day. It's not going to happen. SAAB were already screwed by that point. In fact, when this car was released in 2011, the brand was being sold to Spyker, and we all know what happened there. They didn't last long before they went completely bust. So I bring this car to you today with no preconceptions. I'm obviously a big SAAB fan. I'm a fan of all the modern SAABs, and I love the older ones too. But I don't know what to think about this car. I've never driven it. So essentially what you're going to find out today is whether I like it. Might not help you, might not help anyone else. But if you seem to like what I say about other SAABs, then maybe you'll give me a chance with this one. And it's a positive right from the off for me, because just look at this thing. It's a really, really good looking car in my opinion. It's got to be actually one of the best looking SAABs ever made. And when you think about all the cars that came before it, they were all basically designed in the 90s. And this was the car that, in terms of its styling, brought SAAB massively up to date. I love the way this roof goes from lower down at the back and just slightly higher up towards the front. It reminds me of a Nissan GTR. And this rear end here with the light bar that runs all the way across the back of the boot, that is 10 years ahead of its time. If you think now Audi and Porsche do this kind of thing, but SAAB were there way ahead of them. And this car is enormous. It's 5 meters long because it's based obviously on the same platform as the Vauxhall Insignia, known as the GM Epsilon 2. And the other thing with SAABs for me is they're obviously different, they're unusual, they're rare. And this car is no exception. In fact, they only sold, in the end, in the 2 years that they built this car, under 12,000 of them all across the world. So it is extremely rare. Anyway, let's have a look inside. I must say at this point, absolutely massive thank you to Shannon and Mike at Simply SAAB. They're a SAAB specialist and dealer down in Bristol, and it's the place to be. If you want to buy a SAAB or you want your SAAB looking after, do go to them if you're in the southwest of England, because they know their stuff. They've been there for years and years. They just have an absolute wealth of knowledge and a wealth of spare parts, and they also do minis as well. So if you have a modern era mini from BMW, then they're also worth checking out. Quite honestly, the vibes continue in here because I really like this dashboard. This is like sort of the modern reimagining of that classic SAAB jet fighter cockpit for the road. It reminds me kind of one of my favourite dashboards, which is the Mark IV Toyota Supra. It's all this big flat panel of plastic, but it comes around the driver in a sort of enveloping cockpity style. The dials are all deeply cowled, and you've got these fantastic lines across the dials above them. And then a central circle in the middle, which even has an altimeter style speedo where it kind of tells you your speed you're doing, but in an aviation way. And then you've got the classic SAAB triple dials here on the right, where you've got the turbo, fuel and the temperature gauge as well. So it all feels very familiar SAAB. You've got the night panel, which turns off all of everything except for the speedometer at night time, so you can focus on the road and you're not distracted. But of course, even if you don't use that night panel, everything's green, and green is this quite soothing colour. It's obviously designed for pilots at night to be flying along and just have the green light not distract them from their operational target or whatever it is. This is the top spec Aero model, so you've got this enormous screen. Now on the lower spec models like the Vector SE, which was, I think there were only 2 models, Vector SE and Aero. The Vector SE had the green screen, which kind of looked like an old 80s computer with the green on black. Again, I don't mind that, it's a very SAAB-like thing. Now, of course, I'm sat in very comfortable SAAB seats. Now, these do seem a bit harder and firmer than the ones that I'm used to sinking into in some of the older cars, but they are still comfortable. And the difference is that they don't have the old strange shaped headrests that kind of do this over the top. Instead, it's a much more normal one. But as you sit back here, there's almost no distance between when I lean back, it's just there. On a lot of cars, you feel like if an incident happened, your head would be thrown really far back, but in this car, it's got your head. This car, as I say, is the high spec one, and I've got DAB radio and sat-nav, I've got dual zone climate control with air conditioning, I've got heated seats, memory seats, leather seats, I've got automatic wipers and keyless entry with an engine start-stop button as well. The Vector SE would have the key down here in the centre console, just like all traditional SAABs did. Okay, I can hear you. There is quite a large elephant in this room that we need to talk about, and that is, of course, all the Vauxhall bits. As we know, this car is based on the Epsilon 2 chassis, and it is essentially like any Vauxhall or Holden or Buick or whatever, you know, all these different brands that GM were building. That in itself, to me, isn't a problem. All the previous cars, the 9.5 and the 9.3 from the 90s onwards, there was no way of knowing. But in this car, that did change. If you've driven a Vauxhall, there are many bits in here that will be familiar to you. Is that a bad thing? Not really, in the sense that I had a Vauxhall and I quite liked it. I had an Astra. Saab were supposed to be a brand that were more like BMW, Mercedes, Audi, Lexus, and that's where it is a little bit of an issue, because obviously Vauxhall parts are Vauxhall parts and they're designed to be a certain level of quality, and it just doesn't quite work. The gear stick is the same, even with this little very cool trigger reverse, which is the best way to put a car into reverse. It's the same gear stick and it's the same gear shift, it's the same gearbox, and it's a bit notchy. It's not the best. It's the same font. All of the buttons in this screen here in the middle, when you're selecting through different things and you find, like, for example, the oil remaining percentage, that's identical from the Astra that I had. And I kid you not, this car, it smells like Vauxhall. There's a very specific smell that, you know, Insignias and Astras of that time had. And it's not a bad smell. It's kind of like quite sweet. I don't know if it's in the glue or the plastics they use, but I can detect it in this car. So because this is a big car, it's 5 meters long, it's an enormous car, you know, the same size as like a BMW 5 Series or Mercedes E-Class. It is very spacious. I've got lots of room up front. But what's it like in the back? We better ask backseat JJ. What do you think of it, mate? You've been sat there quietly all this time. Well, holy heck, I've got a lot of legroom here. This is almost like limousine level of legroom. It's set for JJ in front. He's 6 foot tall. I'm 6 foot tall. I mean, I could have the legs of a 7 foot tall man. The only problem is I would have to have the same shaped body, because my head, if I was any taller, would be just scraping against that roof because of JJ's so loved Nissan GTR style roofline. Yeah. So aside from the standard sort of rear passenger accoutrements, I've got adjustable headrests, I've got a big armrest here with cup holders in it and a little storage area. The seats fold like that. Pockets on the back of the seats, I've got pockets here in the doors. I've got a little robot face looking at me here, blowing air out of its eyes, and you can store things in its mouth. While I'm here, I might as well tell you about the boot. I'm going to do a Matt Watson here. I don't know why he does it, but here we go. It's a big boot. And back to you, mate. All right, yeah, cheers for that, pal. You can go now. Oh, all right, cheers, pal. See you later. Right, it's about time we took this car for a drive, so let's go. It's quite, for a big car, it's quite keen. It wants to go. Driving it along, normally, it has a little bit of a sort of fidgety ride, I would say. It seems a little bit unsettled. It's not really uncomfortable, and when you go over potholes, it soaks them up okay. Now, some of these cars came with like adaptive damping and the hyper strut system up front as well, which actually probably would have smoothed out the suspension a little bit, but you might want to avoid the hyper strut because it's going to be expensive to repair. Otherwise, it's very much a modern car. Does it feel like a Vauxhall? Well, this gear shift does. Otherwise, it's quite nice. The steering's nice and light. It's smooth and quiet. Once you get up to higher speeds, it's not as quiet as, you know, the luxury rivals of the time like BMWs and Audis and things. And the thing is, this car's done 124,000 miles and it feels pretty fresh. It's not rattling away inside the interior here. It feels better constructed actually than the previous generation cars like the 9.5 and 9.3. Seem to have held together really well. Like even the buttons, which on this car I've seen in some cases the paint can wear off on the buttons, but it hasn't done on this car. You've got a 2-litre turbo engine with 220 horsepower up front. Now there were some other different engines in this car, from a 1.6 turbo petrol and a couple of 2-litre diesels, and then a 2.8 V6. Power delivery, there's nothing at low revs, and then the turbo kicks in quite smoothly actually. Yesterday I was driving the old 900 convertible from the 80s, and that had like absolute boost lag, whereas this car, it feels quite smooth. I think they designed these engines to sort of feel a little bit more normal. I think this is the engine you want, the 2-litre turbo with 220 horsepower, because it's actually got a bit of poke, a bit of performance for this car. The 1.6 would have been a little bit underpowered because this car is 17 to 1800 kilos, so it's quite a heavy car. And of course there were diesels. You know, if you wanted economy, if you wanted 50 plus MPG, there were diesels, because this car you're going to get 30 to mid 30s. It was not famed for its handling, and to be quite honest with you, I wouldn't have really expected it to be. If Saab had released a new 9.3, I would have said, yeah, that probably should have a sporty kind of feel to it, the little sports sedan type thing that was. But this car, It's a 5-metre long cruiser that can fit adults in comfort in it. I don't expect it to be able to like absolutely blast round the corners. All that said, I think it's perfectly fine. I actually quite like the way this car drives around the sort of faster A-road corners. You know, the steering feels quite nice and seems to pay attention to your inputs. I would say a flowing A-road or a motorway is a good spot for this car, because on a B-road it's just too big. It's too big and too weighty. So there's Vauxhall buttons everywhere. It's got a notchy gear shift and a fidgety ride. But I love this car. I still love this car. It's just the outside of it, the inside of it, the design, the style, everything about it that the Swedes did at the time in the last dying breath of that Saab company. They built something that, yes, it never was going to save Saab. It couldn't. It just wasn't even possible, no matter what they would have built, because it was too late. Whenever I make a video on a Saab, especially these later models, it always gets down to the fact that it's such a shame that Saab finished production, that they went bust, because they were such a great brand, and we're never going to see those cars again. As you know, I bloody love a Saab, and I bloody love this Saab, and I kind of want one. So thank you again to Simply Saab, Shannon and Mike, and other Mike for putting me in touch, and thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.